and welcome back to LendAPI Academy. My name is Kay, and this is episode 4 in our Rules and Decisions series. In this series, we're going to be diving deep into our decision engine as well as our pricing engine and teaching you how to build your very own product utilizing LendAPI. We're going to be building a test product, specifically a mortgage loan, which is one of the more complex lending products out there, and teach you how to develop your own unique platforms. So let's get started. We left off the last video wrapping up our decision tree. We've created 3 separate branches that all branch into one decision tree. These decision child trees will allow the users to be able to reach an outcome based on certain parameters such as FICO scores, debt to income ratio, as well as loan to value. These are kind of our baseline decisions, right? So today we're going to be diving deep into the pricing engine. So the way that we can review the pricing engine in Lend API is it's similar to our Rule Studio, but it provides you the opportunity to actually store your data and retrieve it at another time. So our pricing engine is essentially acting like a data matrix, and it can allow you to program specific decision tables into a matrix format like an Excel table and be able to retrieve that data to be presented into a term sheet or an offer or a contract. So it's very powerful, and usually these two systems are utilized hand in hand. So if you are a lender out there that don't want to set up your own SQL servers just to be able to retrieve certain data types, you can utilize our pricing engine to do so. So we're going to utilize our pricing engine to actually create some API offers for users that qualify for our mortgage. So before I get started, the first thing I want to do is actually create some output variables in our variable studio. So you'll see we have an offer table variable. For those of you that are new to LendAPI, the variable studio is really the foundation of the LendAPI nucleus. It allows you to generate and map any data types or attributes back to a single source. So we've created all of our input variables utilizing variable studio that would be able to be leveraged in both our Rule Studio as well as our product studio. Now let's create some output variables. So the first variable I'm going to create is actually the APR. And I'm going to create a primary APR. And this is really to be able to generate a APR additive for the user who are residing in a primary residence. So as you can imagine, in our Rule Studio, we are separating our specific rules and baseline rules into primary residence and secondary residence type mortgages. So for us, we're going to create a primary residence APR first, and we're going to name this utilizing our prefix BL primary APR. And this will be numeric, and the display type will be a percentage. So let's add this. And now that we've added this, we can actually go in and start to create our pricing engine. So I have here 4 different pricing matrices based on some conditions. So that means that I will actually need to have 4 different offer tables for the user. One of the best tools that LendAPI has is our complex and dynamic offer table. You can create multiple offer tables as well as what we call our child offer table that can be branched into each other like a child tree. So for us, because these are more or less independent of each other, we're actually going to be leveraging a standard offer table. So let's create the first one. So for the first offer table, we're actually going to be presenting some APRs for users that qualify for a primary residence loan with a certain income range as well as a certain FICO range. So we're going to go ahead and actually create the offer table, and we're going to title this primary FICO APR. And of course, this is going to be based on an approved loan, which we are setting as PL approved in our decision outcome. And then finally, we will not have a child tree that goes into this tree. If you have very complex offer types or terms, or have multiple different data sources, and you want them to kind of branch into one another to be queried, a child tree is a perfect way to do so. And of course, we are going to be tying this to is the pizza mortgage loan. So now let's go to the tree, or let's go to the table itself. So if you remember, or if you are new to the LendAPI space, we actually utilize Excel or Google Sheets to be able to create your very own data matrix. So it's very easy to use, and if you're new to it, we actually give you a sample offer table to download and start playing around. But the first thing you'll see once you navigate to this decision matrix is you'll have a header type. This is in the developer world an operator. So this is really the anchor for the full tree. This allows the platform to be able to read from the first cell down to the right. After that, we actually have our conditions and our actions. Actually, for this instance, we're going to be having 3 conditions. So a condition is exactly what it sounds like. It is a condition that has to be met in order for an action to be achieved. So for us, we are actually going to be reading 3 different conditions in order to leverage one action. So all 3 of these conditions have to be met in order for one action to be able to be leveraged. So for this, the first condition is what we call our occupancy. So if you look into the LendAPI product studio, we have a variable called occupancy type that allows the users to select what kind of property they're purchasing, if it's for their primary residence or if it's a secondary residence. So that's how we're splitting up kind of this offer range as well. If you are a primary residence, we will need to retrieve that here. You'll see under occupancy, there is an equal sign. And this is the logical connector for this particular set of data. So this equal sign essentially indicates to the offer table that for condition 1, the occupancy has to be equal to primary residence in order to actually be able to be read in this table. So that is essentially what that means. Second to that is condition 2, we have a borrower income. So borrower income is what we are calling our essentially income that the borrower is making. So in our product studio, we have actually two incomes. We have a co-borrower income as well as our main borrower income. So for us, for condition 2, we're actually going to be leveraging a combination of those. And I will show you in a second how we will get to this. So for that, I'm actually utilizing the range as the operator type here. Range is exactly what it sounds like. We are reading a range. So it tells the offer table that, hey, I'm looking for a range between $350,000 to $400,000 in order to achieve this particular action. So you'll see the range that we have are, anywhere from 0 to 50,000, and then 350,000 to 400. Then, of course, on the top tier we have $500,000 plus. And then finally, the third condition is the FICO score, which is pretty self-explanatory. This is also a range, and this is going to be set for certain conditions to be met. So, if your FICO score is between 801 to 850, then you are going to be set in this particular action. So you'll see that there's a couple of things that are repeating. The FICO score as well as the primary residence are repeating, and it's because there are different data types for the action. So essentially what we're telling the offer table is if this user is qualified for an offer and they are buying a primary residence, they make between let's say they make $350,000 combined, and they have a FICO score of about 650, then this would be the APR. We're going to call it the APR additive because this is actually going to be adding on to the Treasury APR. So this would be the cell that the offer table would then call. And this would go on for, obviously all of the income ranges we've listed as well as all of the FICO scores. So that in essence is our first offer table. So when we're ready, what we're going to do is we're going to download this as an Excel for LendAPI, and let's go ahead and put that into, let's go ahead and put that into our desktop and let's download it. So when we're ready to download a table or upload a table, all we have to do is click the upload and then look for our decision tree that we've just uploaded. There it is. And now, once you've uploaded the decision tree, click Save Changes, and what you'll see is your Excel is now a mapped file in your pricing engine. And you can double check all of the different ranges, the actions, conditions, and the headers. Above that, you'll also see what we call our mapping section. So this section is really key because what it does is once you've uploaded your table, the pricing engine will essentially say, okay, I see that you've uploaded a set of data points. Now let's map them back into your Rule Studio as well as your Product Studio so that all of these different components and functionalities can connect and talk to each other. So you'll see the input variable is actually where we would map our conditions, and then the output variable is where we would map our actions. And you'll see this is where the headers come in and become very important. We have APR, borrower income, FICO, and occupancy, the 4 headers that we have under conditions and actions. So with that, let's map our first variable to occupancy. So this is the first condition, and we're going to map that back to our occupancy type. So you'll see that in our Product Studio, we have an occupancy type that the user will be selecting either primary residence and secondary residence. So for users, all you have to do is set up your occupancy type in the mapping cells and then map it back to the occupancy type in your data matrix. And now what the platform will do is once a user has selected either primary residence or secondary residence and they've passed all the conditions within the decision tree, it will go in and read this table and retrieve the right data points from it. So we've mapped our first condition. Let's map our second condition. So our second condition is actually borrower income. Now for us, we can't actually utilize just the co-borrower income or the user income, the main borrower income, because what we want is a combined income. So before we can actually map this, what we're going to do is we're going to combine those incomes. And to do that, all we have to do is create another variable. So we're going to go ahead and save the changes we've made so far to our pricing engine, and we're going to navigate back to a variable studio. And we're going to create a derived variable. So we're going to call this derived variable borrower income. And we're going to utilize the code borrower income. And this will be money type because both incomes are going to be set in money. And then we're going to actually create a derived variable where we add the co-borrower income to the main borrower income. So let's go ahead and look for our main borrower income. So look for the BL, and I believe we named it income, maybe not, annual income, yes. So this is the income we are going to be asking for the main borrower, and you remember all you have to do to select this is select the variable and then paste it into your expression. So now let's look for our co-borrower income. There's our co-borrower income. So we're going to copy over the code and we're going to add these two together. And now this becomes our new variable for borrower income. Let's check our expression, make sure it's passed, and let's save our variable and test it real quickly. So we're going to put our annual income as 10,000 and then our co-borrower income as 30,000. Let's test it. We are getting 40,000 and that is correct. Let's go ahead and publish this and navigate back. to our pricing engine. So you'll start to see that we are starting to combine various different pieces together to create more and more complex rules and decision trees and make sure all of these are navigating with each other. So now that we've mapped our first occupancy type, let's map our second one, which is borrower income. So for this, we're going to utilize our new variable that we just created, which is borrower income, in the derived variable studio. And of course, you'll see we do have a derived variable cell here as well. This is very specific. If you want to create more, if you want to create actual expressions within the matrix itself, here's where you would go to map certain fields back into the derived variable. But for us, we're going to be utilizing our derived variable specifically for an input. So we will dive deeper into this in another video. So we're going to be leveraging the borrower income for our new variable, and then the final input variable we have is our FICO score, which we are going to be utilizing the main FICO credit score that we're collecting from our main borrower. And then we're going to be putting that in there. And now we have all three of our conditions mapped. Now let's go and map our output or our action. So this is where the output variable or the offer table variable that we created in the beginning of the video comes into play. We named it APR, primary APR, and now we're going to map it to our APR column. So now all of our conditions and actions have been mapped, and that means our offer table, our data matrix, is ready to be published. But before we do, let's test it. And we're going to put in our inputs. So start with primary residence because that is the only occupancy type that we have here. And for borrow income, let's put 200,000. And then finally, credit score, let's put 751. And we have our result, which is silver loan primary 1. So that's telling me that my APR is 1. So let's go to that instance where it is silver loan. So you have the 200,000. And yes, it looks correct. Let's try another one. Let's go ahead and change our borrower income to 350,000, keeping the same credit score. And now it's telling me that my APR is 0.2. So going back to my table, let's just check. We are at 350,000 with the income. Oh, let's just double check. Hold on one second. Oh yeah, 750. And it is telling me that my APR is 0.2. It looks like we're correct. So everything here looks good. And then the final one we're going to do a check on is, let's change the FICO score to 692. And it's telling me I have 0.5. And yes, I do. And it looks, everything there looks good. So looks like our table is functional. So let's go ahead and publish this table and start to map more. So for today, we're going to end this video here, but please join us as we explore more of our offer table on the next video. And as always, please subscribe and follow for more content. Thank you.